I was at the kids' soccer game. My wife was like, "What happened to your voice?" I'm like, "I don't know. I recorded a bunch of podcasts for the weekend and the weekly comedy thing on Live One. I guess I shot my voice. It is a little thin this morning as I record this Monday episode." Adam Sandler, he spoke to AARP magazine, you know, retired people, the magazine they start sending you the second you turn 50. I got mine. Sandler says, looking back on relationships, I could be an ass. I was selfish. I was competitive with other comedians and stuff. I used to go nuts. I had a quick temper, quick reactions. I made a lot of dumb mistakes and said a lot of stupid things. He said bad reviews for his comedies added an extra weight on his shoulders, mostly because I invite all these amazing people I care about to make movies with me, and I wish they didn't have to read crap about whatever we've made. Well, Adam Sandler, a lot of the movies are pretty crappy. I get that you've made a ton of money and there aren't people who like them, but a lot, I mean, Jack and Jill, bro, come on. Really? Hubie Halloween? Come on, Adam. Adam said of co-starring with his real-life pals, but I don't get too shook up. I always remember something my father said. I recall one time that something didn't go right for me. I bombed on stage or didn't get an audition. I was upset and probably embarrassed. And he said, Adam, you can't always be happy. People aren't always going to like you. You're going to fail. And I said, but I just want to be happy, man. I don't want all that other crap. And he said, you won't actually know you're happy if you don't feel the other stuff. Sandler adds, I appreciate other people's talent now rather than competing with it. In every field, in every sport, every part of showbiz, a lot of young comedians, a lot of the new cast on SNL, they just make me laugh now. I'll watch somebody and say, man, they're great. I never would have thought of that joke or that approach. Or my kids will throw on some fresh song or podcast and I'll go, that's so cool. From the AV Club, some news about Beverly Hills Cop 4. Paul Reiser, Judge Reinhold, John Ashton, and Bronson Pinchot have all confirmed they'll be appearing in the upcoming Netflix film Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley. You know who else is in it? Eddie Murphy, who plays Axel Foley. That's probably the most important casting, would you not think? So they've got almost the entire cast back. Not returning is Gil Hill, who played Axel Foley's long-suffering boss in each installment of the franchise. Gil Hill passed away in 2016. Roku announced Kevin Hart's Die Hard 2. Die Harter. Okay, Kevin Hart. This season, John Cena, Ben Schwartz, and Paula Pell have joined the cast of Die Hard 2, Die Harter. Monterey County Weekly caught up with Tom Papa, who said, I put on a suit and tie and go on stage, and I think I look like Spencer Tracy. But then someone says, you look like a dad at a wedding. The Weekly observed that Papa's stand-up routine sounds more like a conversation than set up in punchlines. Tom said, it has jokes in there if you step back and look. That's the art of it. It should seem like a conversation. It's rooted. It feels real. I don't believe in living in cynicism. This is our time. It's not naive. You can still acknowledge what's going on, but you don't have to give up. I like Tom's stand-up a lot. He's been doing it for 20 years. Does it get harder? Papa says it actually gets easier. In the beginning, you're flailing around. You don't know what you're doing. At this stage, you know what you want to talk about, and you can write it well. The key is always writing. You just have to do it. A lot of it is writing something you never use. The mistake is to be judgmental of your writing too early. You can come back to it. I never just throw it all out. You always have to be mining. Tom, have sites like YouTube changed comedy? Papa said. It really has pushed it. You have to write more. Jay Leno is famous for saying he'd never do a special because you're giving away your act. It's made comedians have to create more. It's pretty exciting. Nobody has to say you're good enough to do an album. You can put it on YouTube. No audition necessary. Mike Birbiglia has a new show, and the New York Times caught up with him. The new show is called The Old Man in the Pool. It's coming to Broadway. Previews on October 28th. Properly opens November 13th. Birbiglia said the last show in some ways was about birth, and this show in some ways is about death through the storytelling lens of hitting middle age and realizing that our bodies are slowly in decline. The most crucial thing about it is that it's funny. It goes to the darkest places about life and death, and hopefully 90 minutes of laughs, and we're at the end of it. People feel better on the way out than when they came in. Why Broadway? Birbig says, I always thought of the shows as solo plays, somewhere between storytelling and theater and comedy. What happens with Broadway, in addition to these being some of the best theaters in the world physically and sonically and all the technical ways, there are some people who only pay attention to Broadway, so that's meaningful. It opens up the aperture to more people. That's really the goal. It's Monday, so that means there's a new episode of The Weekly Comedy Thing. That's the show I host on the Live One app. The Live One app is free. The show is free. So if you're like, listen to this, and you're like, boy, I wish Johnny Mac would shut up and play some stand-up comedians like that Tom Papa guy. I'd love to hear something by him. Well, why don't you bounce on over to The Weekly Comedy Thing. Papa's not on the show this week. He'll probably be on next week. But if you want to hear like less me, I talk for about 20 seconds, then I play some bits. It's The Weekly Comedy Thing, free on the Live One app. Do it. The Toronto Comedy Festival continues. 7 o'clock, Joel Kim Booster, Laurie Kilmartin, Todd Barry, JFL Originals. What's that? The Just for Laughs record label JFL Originals will be audio recording live multi-comic showcases in downtown Toronto. Content recorded from these shows will be released in album format. Yeah, this is what you want to do. Okay, tonight, MC Rob Bebenek, Crystal Ferrier, Keisha Brownie, Laura Lebo, Hisham Kaladi, Paul Thompson, Mo Ishmael, and more. Why would we go see that show, Johnny Mac? No, that's why you go to comedy festivals, specifically to see that kind of show. Trust me. 8 o'clock shows, Emmy Blotnick and Summer Laughing. What's Summer Laughing? Watch the next generation of comedy superstars bring the heat in this summer-ific mashup of sketch comedy and songs from our comedy vault. That sounds like it's an actual film. I want to see something live. So 8 o'clock, let's do Emmy Blotnick. 9 o'clock shows, Joel Kim Booster and Mark Little. I feel like I have a good handle on Joel Kim Booster. Let's do Mark Little. 10 o'clock, Mike Rita or Pat Regan. I don't really know either one, so whichever one's closer to where we are at 10 o'clock, we'll walk into that one. No late night shows tonight on Monday. Little surprising, but I won't wig. Vulture did their Comedians You Should Know list. Frankie Quinones. He's got 600,000 followers on Instagram, 700,000 on TikTok, and he had a hit with Creeper, the creator and coach of the Cholo Fit Workout. The Cholo Fit Workout has spawned spin-off programs including Cholo Spin and Cholo Aquatics, whereas knee-high socks and bandana are not considered optional. Frankie's been doing the character Creeper live and online for years. These days, he stars opposite Chris Estrada on This Fool. He plays Luis, an ex-gang member turned reluctant rehabilitation center member. Now you're like, oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, that guy. With the stamp of approval from comedy icons like George Lopez and Will Ferrell, Quinones' career will go as high as his socks will take him. Vulture said, tell us one story from your childhood you think that explains why you ended up being a comedian. Frankie says, my mom and dad always had stand-up on in the house. They used to let me watch George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Paul Rodriguez, Eddie Murphy, and more. Even as a kid, they would tell me to cover my ears on the bad parts. Would always watch in living color, culture class, and SNL. It was inspiring to see how powerful humor was in their lives, how it got them through the tough times. Then one day I found a sprinkler head in my dad's truck, and I would pretend it was a microphone. I started performing for my mom, dad, sister in the living room. From that day on, I never stopped. All right, what was your worst show ever? Oh, man. I remember it was this East Oakland crowd, and it was this OG's birthday. Dude was dressed up wearing gator skin shoes, looking fly. There were at least 100 people there, if not more. As I walked in, the host told me the crowd was a little crazy, but in my mind, I was cocky, like, I got this. They asked me to do the gig of the day because the headliner that was supposed to be there had a falling out with the owner. I still felt confident. At first. I had them for the first 10 minutes. Then I did this joke I used to do about a gay gangster hip-hop group. Mind you, this was about 10 years ago in all black and Latino rooms. That joke would go really good or just okay. This crowd wasn't having it at all. I really lost them and became this nervous robot on stage just trying to get through the rest of my set. It was crickets. One dude stood up and said, MFer, you ain't funny. He hiked his pants back up and sat down. Two older women were sitting up front. They looked like really nice people. One of them said in a very calm voice, baby, you look scared. It was so quiet that everybody could hear her. It was bad. And I had the audacity to hang out after the show. One guy walked by me and said, practice. The only comforting thing that night was the OG whose birthday it was came up to me and said, you'll be all right, playa. It wasn't that bad. I couldn't even sleep that night. I called every veteran I knew for advice. They all said this needed to happen. It wasn't until later that I realized I did need it. In the end, it made me a better comic. And I take that set with me every time I take the stage to keep me on my toes and be ready for anything. All right, Frankie, what's your goal? An embarrassing, earnest goal I used to have was to buy 18 to 24 packs of toilet paper. After 20 years of sharing apartments with other comics and cousins, it was always something I fantasized about. It was always a problem. We're out of toilet paper. I bought the last pack. We'd be using fast food restaurant napkins or rough paper towels. I'm grateful I've reached the point of ordering boxes of toilet paper right to my doorstep. Every time I get that delivery, which usually lasts me 3 to 4 months, I think about those days. No more chafed booty hole, my boy. Fantastic. And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow.